Just before the podcast starts, a quick PSA. The dates announced for US Nationals in this have changed since then, so be sure to check those on their Facebook group.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Laser Sports Academy podcast. I'm very happy to be with three of the big dogs from the US scene. I've got Mr. Luke Beckworth from Fort Wayne. He's the youngest guy to ever win Nationals over there and a member of the World's Council. Welcome, Luke.
Hey, guys.
We've also got Mr. Arkangel, Jason Dutton, who's been around the scene forever. He has recently actually just won the Battle of the Fort tournament that we'll be talking around today, mate. Congratulations and welcome to the podcast.
Thanks. Glad to be back.
And we also have somebody that all the countries know around the world. He's what you call a laser tag journeyman. He's been to the Australian Nationals 3 times. He's been to Sweenats a couple of times. And he's been in the US scene for a long time as well, mate. So it's really great to have you on. Welcome to Mr. Invalid. Oh, can we hear you?
I think you muted yourself.
There we go. Hi.
There we go. That's right. I was like, that was the quietest hi ever, or there's a mute going on.
Very, very quiet hi, I promise.
Welcome, guys. Really great to have you on again. Today we're going to be talking about everything that's happening in the US scene. We're going to start off with a bit of a wrap on what happened in the most recent tournament at Battle of the Fort 9. And then we're going to jump into what's coming up in the scene, including Nationals next year and Worlds at the end of next year as well. So to kick it all off, Luke, you're the host there at Fort Wayne. Do you want to give us a bit of a rundown of Battle of the Fort? We won't get into the victors just yet, but tell us a little bit about the tournament, what formats you played, and
Absolutely.
how it all went.
So we started night one with some side events. We chose solos, which was a bit of a rushed event, I will admit, but we did try our best to keep everything on schedule. So we started right at 11. We kept everything on schedule, which was really nice to see, but for time purposes, we chose to skip out on Elim as a side event just because it was a 2-day event. So solos, and we chose base run or Swede format, as most Americans call it, because they like to play the base game where 2 teams fight against each other to get the base as many times as they can. That one felt a lot nicer. I got a lot of great feedback. People seem to love that game. I think like 80% of the community that voted on the post survey all said they want to play base run again. Probably about 50-50 said solos they'd like to play again. And then, of course, we played team comp. But as a twist, in order to get more teams to come, which was great to have 9 teams, we chose to do 4-man comp instead of 5-man, like the traditional. And it played so well. I'd say there's 100% feedback that is either indifferent as to playing 4-man or 5-man, or the other 100% of the people said that it was just as fun as 5-man in our arena. So it was nice feedback in that regards too. So the tournament played really well. Everything was on schedule. These guys were able to make their flight, and it went really well. I loved everything about it. The beginning was a little messy night one, getting everything set up and everything like that, getting some people there on time. But we did start right at 11. So I know Jason did a great job with the stream, that Elias that is, and he stayed out of solos just to make sure that the stream could be up and running, and I appreciate everything he did for us here. So that's a big shout out to Elias for us, because he is like the US stream guy. Like, he has everything that you need to make sure that we have a great stream for us. The only thing we're missing is commentators now. So
Work in progress.
yeah, Andreas did fill in on
Jason.
night 2, so we appreciate Andreas as always filling in for us to commentate before he had to slip away.
Yeah, I love that you guys, made that change to four-person teams to get those extra teams in.
Yeah.
I reckon that was a great change. It's so glad to hear that the gameplay actually worked and people enjoyed it as well. Why don't you tell us a little bit about how it all panned out? I've heard there was a surprise result in the end.
There was a lot of surprises. The team that ended up winning got second every game of finals, and my team, Monstro, got first 2 of the games. But as you know, coast to coast, both Elias and Dutton here, they both ended up winning finals with 2 of our Fort Wayne players that joined them, as one of theirs couldn't end up making it. So Odin and Banshee, they were both on their team. Both great players in Fort Wayne here. They did a great job filling in. And I don't think Dutton would have made it necessarily if Odin didn't reach out. And he's one of the players that's really eager, and he's traveling to Sweden soon too. So without Odin's invite, our team probably would have gotten the first, but these guys stormed in, and it was a little bit of an upset, but hey, they did a great job, and they came out. I looked at Dutton, I was like, you guys won. He's like, I got to catch a flight. He's like, wait, what'd you say? We won? And I was like,
I was
yeah,
saying, good game. It was great finals. Congrats on the win. All of that to people on his team and him. And it's like, no, you won. And I was like, yeah, wait, huh?
yeah.
I had to run over and look at the scores real quick. I thought he was messing with me.
No.
And then I don't know if he told you, Luke, but Tyler Odin called me after you guys gave out awards and stuff like that. And he sounded very tired and somber. And I was like, oh no, did they mess up? Did we not actually win? And he's like, no, I just have your first place medal. I was like, just keep it. I'll see you again. It's fine. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
I was so worried somebody did the math wrong.
No, the math was good. Everything was great. We had good help with Bob here with the grids, and then Emily filling in to fill in scores. So they did a good job as well. It was a very close finals. I think it was within one base take between first and third, or very close to that. Like every team was within 3,000 points altogether from first to third, I think.
I think you guys and us were within one base take. And
less than a base take, technically. Yeah, I think they would have.
I think it was 1,100 between us from what I'm looking at.
Very close. Like I said, you guys didn't win a single game of finals and still pulled out in the end.
Yep.
So.
That's the
second time that's ever happened for me.
That's how you coast to win.
One coast to the other, baby. Although this is the less impressive version because I have done a second, third, and won a finals before.
That's crazy.
So it just involved one team scoring 20K in a 5-man team comp game.
Yeah, it's really low. But yeah, congrats again, guys.
Now,
thank you.
Yeah, and I've got a vague memory from our we did a prediction stream for you guys, and Odin, is he one of your? Is he been around for a while, or is he a fairly new player?
Within the past year and a half to 2 years, he's been playing. He's fairly new still, but he's been very adamant about getting good and traveling and meeting new players and learning from them, and he's become more of a humble player than when he first started. The ego's still there, but not nearly as much as it was. But that's every new player that thinks they're hot. And honestly, he's got a lot of talent. He's one of our best players in Fort Wayne as an individual, and he's becoming a much better team player. And he's been on my team for 3 or 4 events now. And he played with them because it was 4-man teams, and we changed up the roster, and I picked up some old school players that hadn't been around. And I think, like you said, the 4-man team, dropping it down to 4, it allowed for other teams to come that might not have if it was 4-man, which was really great to see. We even had 3 players from an Armageddon team. The 4th player was also an Armageddon player, Havoc. He brought 3 Laser Storm players that had never played Zone before, and they had a great time. They loved it. So I'm hoping to see the community grow in that aspect too, that maybe we can get some more Armageddon players, and maybe even some Zone players might, decide to try an Armageddon tournament at some point.
4-man is it still feels like it's not a side event.
Yeah.
Because it's enough people to feel not like a side event, but it reduces it enough, just by the one person, to make it heaps easier to get a team together. Because that's what you're battling all the time, is that how many people can afford to go, essentially, or get the time off work and all that kind of stuff. So it's great that it worked out for you guys. And so tell me a little bit about some of your up and coming players. You said you had some new players coming from Laser Storm?
Yeah, we had the Laser Storm players who were very surprising. Night 1, they had to feel it out, they had to feel out the arena. They had to understand how to play the game and strategize for Zone, the way that Zone players play compared to Laser Storm. And night 2, I had a talk with them, and I said, you guys are honestly really good players. I think if you just played with the same confidence you do with Laser Storm, you guys will do even better. And they all of a sudden were pulling close to 10K, doing a lot better as individuals and as a team. So I'm hoping that they come back. They said that they want to make it their second, their secondary competitive laser tag scene, you know, so they want to come to more events. I'm hoping that they will. Maybe they'll bring out some more people for the 5-man comp. Maybe some other people will get involved and they'll have a good time. And we do have a brand new team here locally too that came out, and they had 5-man, so they picked up an alt so that they could have a full team. And they're just a bunch of, you know, young, early 20s, you know, just getting into the scene now, which is great. So they're here tonight. They're all we're going to be playing a doubles event after the stream, and we're going to have some awards for that, just for some good fun. And they're all wanting to get better and do better in the next event. They were predicted 7th, and that's exactly where they ended up. But everybody that watched them play said that they did way better than they expected. And some of the individuals especially did a lot better than they do in like member nights. Like, they were pretty clean, and they also like knew their positioning. They knew their call outs. There was just, obviously, they're inexperienced, so they need some more experience before they can really get higher up on the brackets, you know?
I was definitely impressed by how far along they had came.
Yeah.
Because I hadn't seen them play before, and they clearly had an idea of what they were doing. There was a lot of individual skill there, and it's just exactly like you said, need a few more events. They're gonna really pull some upsets on people.
Yeah, and even if they join, like if they can't all make an event, if 1 or 2 of them join a team that wins, they're going to get that, you know, they're going to get that win, and then it's going to drive them to do even better, and they're going to want to compete more. So that's what we like to see with other teams' willingness to pick up other players that may not have gotten a win before, but they see the talent in those players, you know.
And have you seen a bit of shot of adrenaline in some of those newish players after they've played their first big comp?
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, some of the guys that didn't come out as often before the comp are coming out. Like, they've already been talking in their group chats, like, when are we coming? Are you coming out Friday? Are you going to be here Friday? Are you going to be here Saturday? You know, like, and then they came out last night and they're here tonight. So they're definitely driven players. And like I said, they're all young. Most of them are in college. And most of them live here locally, so I'm hoping that they'll continue to come and maybe even bring more players, you know, aboard.
So good, so good. So, Mr. Invalid, it's the first time we've spoken since you visited Australia, mate. Good to see you again. Have you? Was there anything you could? I know you've been talking to the our very good friend George about scoreboards and things like that. Were you able to incorporate any new toys into the tournament?
Yeah. So we actually did end up implementing the scoreboard for this tournament. Had a couple of kinks to kind of figure out because there's a couple of small issues since it's still kind of in beta. And it was actually awesome because the moment I had some kind of particular problem, I was able to work with him to literally just remote in, take a look at what's going on. And like right at that exact moment, we would figure it out. He's like, hang on, hold 1 second. I'm going to just rebuild this. He literally just attaches it back to the computer, new executable file, and immediately it's back up and running with like any particular problems. Like Luke mentioned before, getting started with all this, couple technical issues, but once the scoreboard was up and optimized, honestly, it was great. It was phenomenal. It was very, you know, very well presented. People could look at this, see what's going on. It's a lot more informative without the additional details, I guess you could say, that aren't as necessary. And it was things like that that I think people really enjoyed, along with the summary board that we could transition over to afterwards. And like those were like the big, like, I guess you could say like meat and potatoes or something of this, where he would say, all right, you know, like who had the most tags, you know, highest score, highest GRC. All of it was just compiled into like a quick overlay afterwards that people really liked.
They really drove around a conversation after games. People would come out and everybody's pointing at everything, really happy to see their name up there for one thing or another, whether it's, you know, most tags or most tags on a teammate or something like that. It was always a lot of fun to see that.
It's a better for viewing the VOD again, too. Like when you go back and you watch the VOD, it's so much better of a viewing experience, especially for newer players that, you know, want to see like what they did in a game or what the enemy team did in a game, you know. Being able to see all those stats is really nice. So we appreciate that. Like, honestly, all that work that he put in and all the work that Jason did to make it work too.
Yeah. Shout out to you, George. Legend, mate. Thank you for pushing through with that. It's so amazing. And you can get really creative with when you're doing your awards at the end and stuff as well, can't you? You can. It's nice to be able to give out lots of.
Yeah, if we would have known, honestly, if we would have known some of the stats that there would have been or something, like it would have been really cool to like summarize like I don't know, like highest GRC or like most tagged by teammate or something, like, you know, like some just fun awards like that would be cool.
Yeah. For everybody in Europe that might not have seen this, we saw it for the first time at the Australasian Championships in August, and it's just been lent to the American crew. But essentially, a gentleman named George Twinkles has created this scoreboard, which has just like so many different things, including chain tag, which is like how many tags can you get within a 4-second burst kind of thing without a break. And I can't even, what are some of the other ones, guys?
Dominating. So when you are shooting the same player a lot, it'll track it. So like, let's say
it'll say like Invalid
Jason
dominating
Skywalker. Yeah, and it'll say that like I have shot that person like 7 times this whole match, or like 10 times, you name it. There's that.
The base takes.
There's base takes also have additional information, which is awesome. It'll tell you how many people you tagged while taking the base. It's small little tidbits like those that really add on to like really giving you an idea of what's happening in the arena.
The little on fire piece on the player scorecards was always cool to see as people keep doing more and more and more.
I will say
was a really fun addition to it.
This scoreboard inspired a lot of our community to go back and watch old VODs to how it used to be. And like they were having a good time doing that. And it was kind of cool because people were bringing up like 2018 Balti Nats where Jason streamed and I hosted there. And they were watching, and Don Zero, he had a 51 tag streak on the old school European scoreboard. A 51 tag streak, that's the highest I've ever seen. But like compiling information like that, the way that they do in a summary that George came up with, is so cool to see.
Yeah.
Wow.
Also, Havoc just from the guy who brought the Laserstorm players just said in the chat, he said that the scoreboard was awesome and that all the guys from Laserstorm really appreciated the additional details.
Yeah.
And it was great for feedback and for motivation and stuff like that. So it really, every team coming out of the game immediately went to the scoreboard, wanted to see those details. It was an awesome addition.
Yeah.
And do the Laserstorm guys play competitively in on their equipment? Like
they do.
The way we do?
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. And is it 3-team game? How similar is it?
I don't know. I just know that Laserstorm is played, and they were trying to explain to me they hold the gun near their chin, and they have headbands. And typically in Laserstorm, there's banners hung so you can hide your head behind the banner. You know, there's flags in their arenas. It's not necessarily like paneling. Right. It'd be more like hiding behind the banners and then poking your head out and trying to shoot. And if I could be wrong, but I think you have to hit like 3 or 5 different points before they deactivate or something like that. I could be wrong. I remember them telling me something about they can call their hit, but they can't like say who hit them and stuff like that. When they're dead, they're not allowed to speak, which they had to overcome for zone, because in a base they'd be down and wouldn't communicate to their teammate that there was somebody behind them, like that they had to turn around and shoot. And they were like, I feel like I can't say anything. And then they overcame that by the second night. So
if anybody from the Laserstorm community wants to reach out, I'd love to podcast you one day. We can find out all about it. Invalid, were you going to say something earlier?
No worries. I think one thing that isn't mentioned about the scoreboard, because I guess it's from the outside perspective of it, is all the details and information you can pull from the scoreboard, at least from our side, where it's like tournament coordinator, people handling grids, summaries, all that information. It has screenshots of every single game, the end of the game. So all the information that you would normally, at least for us, like we don't use Torn 5 yet. We're trying to get to that point, right? We're still kind of in a work of progress, but what was nice was having the ability to just have a scoreboard that also makes tabs of, scores per game. So you can literally just have all this information to just pull, at least in the States, makes it much easier. And it beats having to have somebody take a screenshot of like every single game after each, every round's over. But it keeps all of this information in like screenshots and like text files. So you could literally just review any kind of game log file or anything and just replay it, even at a live, time frame. All of those things were just really nice to have too.
Yeah. And I love, I think I spoke to George about this at Nats. I think I asked him about the databasing of all the information so we can rank these things across tiers and tournaments and all that kind of stuff. And I think it's on the list. It's on the list of things, of coming attractions. So yeah, a great progression in the sport. Yeah, everybody's super stoked with it, mate. So thank you very much, Georgie boy. All right, let's move on to the next piece, guys. I just wanted to ask a little bit about. I mean, this is probably the best measure, I guess, the Battle of the Fort, but just how the scene's progressing in general. You know, have you got, you know, what tournaments you've got coming up? What's the general enthusiasm in the community over there at the moment? Give us a bit of background. Maybe Dutton, you could share a little bit.
Sure. So I won't steal Invalid's thunder just yet. We are, you know, getting ready and have pretty much all the details for nationals ready to go. He does. I have nothing to do with it. We're looking probably somewhere late February, early March. I think we were talking about, right, Jay?
For pre-nat.
About maybe doing a pre-nats, or depending on people's interests, maybe doing it somewhere else, but probably a pre-nats, just to make sure we've got everything locked up with that. For what's going on at different sites, we pretty much have, I would say, 2.5 active sites. Well, maybe a little bit more.
You've gotten more support from Zone Laser Tag in the US in recent months too. So
yes, that's the big thing.
What does that look like? What's the support from them?
So there's always been, like, I guess you could say, like a step in progress each year of what we want to try to focus on, particularly when it comes to like nationals and rebuilding the scene here, right? And, you know, each year was like either, you know, can we get, you know, an organized time for nationals to start happening again? Can we stream it? Can we make it presentable?
Can we get more
then
colors?
We start focusing on, more colors is always one of the most difficult things to accomplish. I kid you not. It used to be a really hit or miss kind of thing where it's like we would ask for it, and then whether we would get it or not is it's kind of up in the air, but we would get it. Kind of. It was up in the air a lot. Yeah. And so as of lately, we've been able to actually like establish a relationship with the owners here, I guess you could say, who oversee a lot of those things, where they're willing to support us with things like, you know, licensing for colors, even trophies, you know, giving us like phaser shells to put on like a plaque or something like that. It's small things like that, or even phaser cables. I mean, there's a lot of that up for discussion that we're going through and we're trying to organize now compared to before. And it's kind of getting us to that point where it's like we're really getting to where we want to be in terms of like support for nationals. And there's more details to that we can talk about afterwards. But
I don't know if you want to mention, Jason, but you're planning on hosting a daytime event too. So
yes,
let's just go ahead and put the details out for Nats.
I mean, if you want, sure.
That's your baby. Go ahead.
All right. So we're at a point now where it's, I guess with me traveling a lot, I see a lot of good ideas and things that on paper we want to try to implement in the States, but it's always seems to be, you know, something that's out of our reach. So bit by bit, we try to work on accomplishing those things. That's kind of what we do, right? Without the support of, you know, the sites, the owners, people helping me out, whether it's with like grid organization, scheduling, all that stuff. And that comes from, you know, not just people like me, but like Arkangel, Skywalker, Moomin, like other international players also really give me a lot of support and work with actually getting all this, you know, kind of accomplished. And so with last year, or with this year's Nats, we had a pretty good turnout. It was a pretty good tournament, relatively well organized, which is, you know, one of the bigger things that we struggle with the most in the States. Our schedules are terrible. We say it ends at 6. Well, guess what? You're not leaving until like 8:30 a.m. like on the last day. It's bad. And now we're at a point where we want to start pushing for some of like the last bits and pieces, which are, all right, well, what are the odds we can get like a daytime event happening where, you know, you're not stuck from 12 a.m. to like 7 a.m. and then you sleep the whole day until you're back at it. So Nationals this year, or excuse me, next year, 2024, is actually going to be a daytime event. That's the plan. I can't imagine, at least in my history of playing this game, that we've had a daytime event. No. I don't know if Arkangel has one. Like it hasn't happened.
Not since 2001 that I'm aware of. So.
Yeah, it's not happened, and at least in my it just hasn't happened. So that's going to be something completely new, and we're pretty excited about it because a daytime event in the States just in theory sounds awesome. It means, you know, we have much more, I guess you can say,
more camaraderie.
What's a better way to put it?
Stuff to be able to do after the event's over. You still have some daylight.
Yeah, because we're done by like 6 p.m. or something like that.
Everybody always goes
people
back to their hotel and just
especially if
goes
they're visiting.
to sleep, you know?
Goes to sleep.
Yeah.
Yeah, like it's there's not much happening afterwards. It's really, there's not much community stuff going on, right? Afterwards, people can like shower, go to the bar,
Yeah.
go bowling, hang out and catch up somewhere, you name it.
It's such an interesting point, because a lot of people comment on the community in Australia, and we've always had daytime events, and I'd never thought about that particular part of it. It's got to have a huge influence on, on why that's the way it is.
Yeah. Like even this year when I went to Australia with Sweden, same thing. Like when we were done, we didn't just all go to sleep. We went home, we showered, we had a team meeting, we talked about what happened, what we're gonna do. We would look at our VODs, we would eat and like drink like crazy and just talk about everything. It was, there was a lot more socializing afterwards, whereas in US tournaments, everyone honestly just goes to sleep afterwards because it's, the sun's rising and you're tired.
It's same with like when you go to finals, people leave before the finals is even decided, or like who's going to finals. Like people know they're out and they're like, all right, it was nice being here, and it's because they're tired. They want to get home. It's 4 a.m, 5 a.m. I think people will stick around now if we're doing a daytime event to stick it out and actually hang out till the event's over.
Yeah. And it's also like a much better time to get friends and family and stuff tuning in. So in Australia, people have finals parties. So if they can't attend nationals, they're at home with a bunch of guys on the couch watching the finals on the Friday.
Absolutely.
And, make a day of it.
So that's kind of that's kind of what we're aiming for 2024. There's some other focuses that we want to try to like enforce. We're also trying to really start really enforcing the rules of reffing, base evac procedures, there's a lot of small
we're
tickets
working on a lot of that
like
tonight too, Jason. We've implemented a lot of the things that we were talking about with rules and stuff. So we put like baselines, new baselines, different like no standing zones, stuff like that. We're going to implement. And if you don't know, Bootza, this is the site that he's hosting is here next year.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Fort Wayne Nationals 2024 US Nationals.
Exactly. Issue is that in the States there's not a lot of call outs from refs. I mean, it's either I don't know. I mean, the list goes on for particular reasons for it, but it's really something that I think we need to start cracking down on, especially if it's going to be in Fort Wayne. It's a much more like close quarters arena, and without certain rules and regulations, it's not just about safety, but I feel like in general, it can cause a lot of just obstructions for things playing out the way they should.
Yeah.
I mean, especially the way, again, it's just taking it by example. Australia, even this tournament in Australia is pretty close quarters. You step out the wrong time, you're going to get collided into someone running full speed in there.
I think the biggest thing too is like just implementing a rule somewhere that maybe would just allow for no talk back at all to a game master, because I think 99% of the reason why people don't call ticks is because the player will give them attitude. They'll look at them the wrong way, or they'll talk back to them, or they'll cuss a storm out, like whatever the case may be, whatever they're doing, people are afraid to tick. And I think that's really it. Because like there's times where I see somebody or where I know I did something wrong, and I'm like, why didn't they call me? Like, why did I not get ticked for that? I know I just cheated unintentionally, but I did, and I didn't get called for it. So I think people are just afraid. I was a tournament coordinator at this last event here, and I think people were just afraid to tick me. Like, why didn't you call it? So just maybe even using the VODs and going back and having people just watch and put together examples would be a good idea of like, hey, this is something that ref should have called, or something like that, Having new players shadow others was a suggestion we got from the Laser Storm players. They said it would be good on the post survey. They commented having new players or newer players that have never competed or not ever been in a national recognized tournament, shadowing other refs before they're allowed to ref alone would be a good thing to do too.
It's a really good idea.
Yeah, that's how we do it in Australia. They do 5. There's a certain number of shadows you have to do of shadowing another ref, and then you have a selection of master refs. So there might be you 3 plus a couple of your more senior players who are considered master refs, and they have to shadow at least a couple of games of the master ref just before they're signed off. And the master refs are the people that everyone goes to for clarity on rules and that kind of a thing as well. And it's going to be like there's going to be a transition period where everybody's kind of been doing it this way for so many years, and then suddenly it's going to change and it's going to cause a little bit of disruption. But it's just one of those things you're just going to have to keep your eye on the prize and go, okay, it's going to upset a couple of people in the short term, but the long-term gain is going to be worth it. And if you do a pre-nats, you got a tournament between now and nationals, at least one, to start to make the transition, so that hopefully nationals is a bit more well received at nationals, perhaps.
Yeah, because we're actually, that was when we were having a meeting about it. Because I had a meeting with some of the players in particular, discussing some of the things I wanted to push for pre-nats, which mainly involve base evac procedures, reffing, things like that. We're expecting people to kind of get annoyed about the idea of having to do things a certain way. Like no one on paper here is going to immediately just transition to that process and be like, yeah, this is fine. But once they do start implementing what we're enforcing, I feel like it's going to play a lot better. There's going to be a lot less congestion in the bases and stuff like that, or problems in particular, especially if refs are actually giving ticks accordingly to players for not following the proper rules.
Yep.
So I think some of what you guys were talking about we had kind of like a post-tournament meeting with some of the captains that were there and something like that. And one of the things I think the two of you did well, and I think will help a lot of the refs, is removing some of that gray area. Like, okay, here's where you exit. You always take this path. Everyone coming in knows you're taking that path if you're going out. Just removing some of those gray areas. It's like, look, you knew that this was what's happening, and if you bump into somebody, or your shot gets blocked because you blind fired around a corner and stuff like that, it's going to be so much more helpful to the refs.
Australia implements a rule just like that, where you can't cross your arms over a half wall, and if anybody does, you get termed for it. That's the types of gray areas we want to like nip in the butt, so that nobody even does it or makes that mistake.
I've got a personal view that I feel like the traffic around base doors is like one of the biggest things that influences games in terms of even the most subtle body movements. You could shift your body like just 6 inches this way, and it causes an incoming player to have to like go around you, which can change whether they get a denial or not. And then it can completely like impact like results essentially. So when I've hosted 2 nationals at my home site in Australia, and both times we always do a refs meeting before. So all the refs come in and we go over all the most important rules. And the thing I spend the most time on is exactly what you're talking about in directing them how to exit a base, how not to position yourself outside a base, so to avoid getting in the way essentially. And yeah, like you were saying, Arkangel, being very, very specific about every single door and which angles you want to be entering and exiting from makes a huge difference to the gameplay. Because once everybody's doing it the same way, it improves the flow of the game so much.
100%.
And people can't just accidentally get in the way, because accidentally getting in the way changes the results of games big time.
Yeah. And so like we're really trying to focus on Nats 2024, really cracking down on those kind of things, because we really haven't. It's always kind of been like just a thing there, right? The giant elephant in the room is, why are game masters or refs not calling anything? And well, how do we feel about all the constant people corking and getting in the way when people are taking bases and whatnot? It's been a recurring issue.
I'll be right back, guys.
It wasn't. Yeah, that's fine. But it wasn't always, like I said, there was always things that I felt like we needed to focus on first, and then eventually work our way to that point. And I feel like we're kind of at a point where, with our next tournament, like this is, I think, where we need to start really cracking down on, particularly with the Fort Wayne arena in general. Be pretty interesting to see how it plays out. I feel like there's going to be a lot of people who are going to accidentally break rules to try to get used to it. But, it's
why we do it.
It'll figure itself. Yep.
Yeah,
it's going to be like Worlds in Syracuse all over again. What was the rule? No cursing in there? And like everybody was getting a termination for it. Was that what it was?
There were a couple of those.
Yeah.
No playing in the little hobbit hole. No talking to the refs in general. That was a fun tournament. I enjoyed that.
So tell me about the Nats. If you guys are doing it on daytime, does that mean you're going Monday to Friday? Is that what's happening?
What are the dates, by the way, Jason?
Here, let me pull them up here again. Sorry. I need to pull up to June, but they are going to be. 1 second. Because I have goldfish memory, so I'm always like way off when I try to finalize my dates here, pull them up. So they're going to be from the 20. So they're going to be in 2024. They're going to be June 20th to the 23rd. With 23rd, since it's a daytime event, also being starting at like 8 a.m. to arguably like 5 or 6. It's going to be basically on the weekend or the week of Juneteenth here. So 20th to the 23rd. Odds are 20th will be something like LOR, and then
so that's Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Thursday will
correct,
be LOR,
yes.
Right?
Yeah, just LOR.
Yeah,
and then we love Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Yeah. So, but from there, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, it'll be something like 8 to like 5 or 6 p.m. Each day, including Sunday. Normally, tournaments end as like 6 a.m. Sunday, and then everyone just flies home or drives home when they wake up from their hotels. But the idea with this is, if we're done by like 5 or 6 from there, if people wanted to go afterwards, they could, or they would leave like Monday morning or something.
Wow, weekend, that time slot, that's peak time.
Very
cool.
Very cool. For business, are you saying?
Yeah,
it is, and that's I think, I don't know if Jason said anything about pricing, but we'll keep that under wraps for now. But we came to an agreement of just basically, as long as the business gets compensated for what we would normally make, we're not really profiting much, but there is some profit there. But and it's all in an effort to grow the scene too, right? So I'm hoping that with the daytime event and Jason hosting here, it will really grow the scene a lot, and then just the whole community can like have a different experience and maybe walk away from that and be like, wow, that was so much fun. Like, we should do that again somewhere else, like, and then maybe we can get some owner, help at other sites too with that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I guess one of the more difficult things is that the location is not the most popular, right? Fort Wayne is a little bit on like the quieter side of things, but I think most teams that I think are genuinely interested are probably going to show up, except for maybe one, but we're still working on it.
International interest makes everybody in the States want to travel wherever that international team will go, though. If there's even one international team
interested,
if there's even one international team coming, it makes all the other teams in the U.S. that are potentially coming like excited and be like, we want to play against them if they're coming to the U.S., and there already is confirmation that a Cali team is coming.
Yeah. And
is that Nawal's team?
Yeah. Like, he's got a full roster.
Oh, Slick's coming.
Oh, awesome.
Oh,
excellent.
Wow. I didn't even know that.
Who's on Slick's team?
Nothing from them yet. Nothing from them yet. But I would be lying to you if I told you I haven't talked to some of them. This is a little preview. They said no for Worlds, but they said if we go to Worlds, we're going to go as a full Legends roster. So that has me thinking that there's the potential for a Legends comeback starting soon, leading into 2024 Worlds. They do. It would be great to have them. I know at least one Philadelphia team might try to form and come out. Identity Crisis is very interested and will most likely be there.
That's ballsy.
He will be there, obviously. Yeah. I'm trying to think. I know we nearly had a combination of the old Virginia Beach Raleigh teams nearly put together a team that fell apart at the last minute. So I'm going to try to work on them. One of their players, Fresh, lives local with us. And will come out and practice. So he nearly had them all together. I think he might be able to get it done this time. So we're hopeful that it'll be a pretty high turnout. And for anybody who's worried about travel, it took me 10 minutes from parking my rental car to getting through security with my bag getting x-rayed. So there's not a lot of time to wait at the airport.
Super fast.
That's a big selling point.
It is very fast. So as quickly as Jason left from the tournament, I left sooner because my flight was earlier, and I got there with my flight departing 21 minutes as I walked into the airport, and I got onto my plane within 5 minutes. and I was like, I'm not making my flight. I was so positive that I was not going to be able to board, and like they were still just, I just walked right through basically. Like the only thing they did, like you said, just X-ray my bag, and I was out. I was like, oh, okay, I'm good. I'm going home. Bye. It was that fast to leave. I did want to mention as well is we really want an international team to come up, right?
Yes.
I know Moomin back then tried to get a team from Europe to show up or Sweden, and it kind of fell apart last minute. So I think he's always kind of just, shown up either by himself or maybe one or two Swedish players. But at the same time, even if it's a conglomerate of, Australia with Europe, you name it, I would love to have an international team show up of any form. And I'm more than happy to help promote that and sponsor that team and, trying to make their trip here, like as doable as possible. That's still on the table. And I still have full intentions to do that because I really do feel like having an international team and all this really does fire up other U.S. teams to want to, show their faces and actually, like do what they can to keep up with international teams, see what it's like.
Just imagine how great it would be if we were to get a European team and an Australian team. That would be awesome.
That too.
I would love that.
Yeah. So that is still something I'm willing to push out for, and I'm not changing that. My mind's not changing on that. I want to support any international team that's going to come out here any way I can. So I do have plans to. If someone announces it, let me know what I can do to help.
There you go, Aussies and Kiwis. The message has been put out there. Make yourself available and get over to the US. And if the legends show up, and then Balti as well, it's going to be like on. It's going to be on because we've all played each other in multiple world tournaments before. The Aussies and the Balti and the legends. So we've got history. We love each other, of course, but we got history in the arena. We can't wait to bail it out again. So that will be a sight to behold. Awesome. And can you give the listeners a bit of an insight into the events you're expecting to play at the Nats?
So at this rate, what we're planning to do is going to be LOR, triples, elim, team comp, and I'm still contemplating if we want to stick with solos since we have LOR, but I'm pretty sure with the schedule being the way it is, I believe solos will still also be possible as well. So that'll basically be the schedule. No base game, unfortunately. Sorry.
No, you're fine. There was a lot of positive feedback for it, but if there's not time in the schedule for it, there's no need to do it, especially if a lot of people traveling like Elim, it's still a staple side event, even though it didn't get as much positive feedback as base game. I think that's just more of a local thing than it is like a full community thing. And I think that saying LOR is an event being played at the tournament, I would more say, like you said to me, Jason, is it's more of an opening ceremony night one. It's not necessary that you have to sign up and play or that you have to show up on Thursday as part of your registration. If you don't want to play LOR, you don't have to.
Yeah. It's the only thing that's happening on Thursday. So let's say some people can only get the weekend off, including Friday. Odds are, they probably just won't play LOR and they just show up, Thursday night or Friday morning before we start.
Yeah, it's a great hangout thing to do. LOR is just more of a great community thing.
I'll need the time on the packs, but I'll also need to save myself from too much embarrassment. So I'm not sure. I'll be sitting on the fence for LOR at the moment. What system are you guys running?
Helios 2.
H2.
H2, everybody. Here we go. So it's been really good feedback about H2 from the Aussie community. So any tournament on H2 will be well received as well.
Yep.
We had we only had about 10% was the winning vote. 10% pack issues was the winning vote. Like there was obviously some pack issues, but 10% of the entire use of the tournament, that was the majority vote in the post tournament, saying that there was only 10% pack issues. So that's really nice to hear.
Yeah, awesome. So you finish Invalid?
No. Yeah, you were good. I was just agreeing.
I was like, cool. And just to finish up on Nats for next year, just give us a bit of an insight into the arena, how the arena plays. Yeah, what can you tell us about the arena that might get some international players hyped for it? And I do know, I'm pretty sure Moomin has shared with me it's his favourite US arena.
No, not this one, right?
Not this one? Which one is his favourite?
I think Philly is his favorite, is it not?
I think it's Philly.
It's Philly. It's definitely got to be Philly.
Yeah, he's never played in Fort Wayne, which is why he is excited to come, I think, because he's never played here.
Okay. Tell us a bit about the arena.
Do you want me to speak or?
You can explain it. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
like,
think you're probably gonna be the best person for it after the
sure.
changes
I
we've
mean,
made.
it's my home site for 16 years. So, I mean, the green base is probably the most defendable base that we have. If you guys have watched any of the VODs, you'll notice that most teams that pin themselves up against some of the top teams seem to always pull ahead when they're winning, when they're green, and it's always like the favorite choice when it comes down to like golden games or finals. People want to play green last as kind of their anchor base. Blue base is a very defendable base too. It's stuck pinned right in the middle. So what you'll see sometimes though is blue will swap bases with green, or blue will swap bases with red, and it's kind of like a tug of war of which base can you get into after that if they decide to keep that third team out. So blue is a tug of war base, I would say. If you don't defend it and you just swap bases, it can be very difficult to overcome the other two teams that have swapped bases in the game. And then red base is kind of stationary all the way out in the corner by itself. It's far away but very defendable base. But if no one comes to your base, you're going to be starved. So you don't want to be stuck on defense on your base in the beginning. You really got to push out and expand and not let people sneak by you to just get one base at a time. Otherwise, it can become like it's our losing base. You have to figure out as a team how to play against the other two teams in the arena. And I would say in our most recent tournament, none of us, not a single team, could figure out how to play red correctly to beat out the other two teams when they were red. So that base we're still trying to work around and see what ideas we can come up with to see if we can balance its placement in the arena. But the bases are all very defendable, very unique. They're not like any others that I've played in other tournaments. We're working on doorways right now. They're not as open as Philly's doorways are, or even Baltimore, but if any of you watch VODs from Baltimore, there was no way to defend those bases at all. You could reach in, just shoot a player around the wall. So in that defense, they are very defendable bases, just narrow doorways. I don't know if you guys want to add anything to that.
Single level arena?
We play downstairs only. Just if we were to do upstairs, it would kind of be like what we do in Philly if we were to do 6 or 7-man teams. But I think we've gotten to the point where 5-man downstairs only has become the staple. Am I correct? Is that the right? That's what we agreed on as tournament coordinators, to just stick with 5-man downstairs only as kind of a staple. Even though we did quads, that was in order to get more teams to show up, and it worked. It was great to have more teams here.
Yeah, good.
I think a lot of it is consistency based for why we've kind of stuck with 5-man. You have a 5-man tournament and then you have a 7-man tournament. Well, we're pulling 2 players from the B team. The other 3 don't want to go and then give up and stop playing. Yeah. And we do with the ramps. So there's 2, correct me if I'm wrong. I think there's 2 ramps, and you can play with 1 foot on the 3 ramps. 1 at each base, and you can play with 1 foot on the ramp, so you can get some very advantageous positions for those depending on what you're doing. And with the bases, and if anybody's listening interested and wants to see what it looks like, we all have arena maps that we're happy to share. But the arena is kind of a rectangle, and blue base is literally in the middle of the middle, with green on one side and red on the other, so that you really do kind of get that push or pull with it, like you were saying.
Yeah, the tug of war.
Red base. Most games red base in a lot of series. In the very competitive series, red tended to get last. There really was, from what I can see, one team that kind of bucked that trend, and we got second every game.
Yeah, but I would say that red was not an undefendable base. It's a very defendable base.
Agreed.
It's the way the game plays and the way the teams play that makes it so that they tended to always get last in the competitive games.
Yeah.
Well, and we were chatting before we started the pod. I found something very interesting, which was what you were sharing about. It was a little bit harder to get field points from red, but when we go to 5-person teams, that should mitigate the field point disadvantage they have a little bit. So you've got that extra player on the team to field point, which
I will say
when you're playing 4-person teams, it's a bit harder to have. You don't have that extra floater to be getting field points. So
I remember when Legends played here 6-7 years ago, they played here, I think, right after Worlds, and I think red was their favorite base. They chose it last. And it's some other team's favorite base too. But 4-man, it seemed like green was still the strongest because of the way the game played. Yeah.
Cool. And just in terms of size, you've been to Sunshine Coast, haven't you, Luke?
Yeah.
Similar kind of floor space size to that?
I would say there's less dead space, if that makes sense. Like when I went to Sunshine Coast, it seemed like there was a lot of dead area that wasn't played often, like some corners or like even the middle of the arena. There was like, it was kind of like this area was just more of a walkthrough area. No one really played there. So there's less dead space. There's only a few areas in the arena that I would say are kind of like dead zones that nobody really plays in to defend or have an advantage. But I'd say the smoothness of it, it plays a lot like that. But there's definitely, to my knowledge, when I was at Sunshine Coast, there wasn't really like a tug of war base where you had to fight over, you had to make sure you got that base before the other team did, where green is always trying to make sure they get blue before red does, or red is always, vice versa.
Okay.
Kind of to give you a decent analogy for it, if you think back to the New York Worlds back in 2011, how red base was kind of that centralized base that everybody was fighting for. Blue base is kind of similar in the same way that everybody's maybe not necessarily fighting for it all the time, but they're always aware of what's happening on it and trying to capitalize on the situation.
Yeah, sneak in behind the third team to get the other team out and hold it down,
Yeah. Righty ho. Well, it sounds. Well, I mean, you've played lots of tournaments there. It sounds like it's a really good arena, very competitive. So there's zero excuses, ladies and gentlemen. Get your ass over to the USA in June next year. All right, so let's shuffle along to Worlds now, guys. Tell us a little bit about where the US community is in terms of Worlds. Have you guys got teams that are interested?
100%.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah.
I would say there's some people that are 100% to go. We just don't know the rosters yet. And even at Battle for the Fourth,
that's what I put it.
There was Armageddon players that were talking like, so are we going to take an Armageddon team? Like, do you guys, we want to go. Like, we're going to go. But only if we get an full Armageddon roster. So we have like even players that aren't necessarily zone players that just want to go because of location. Like, they're trying to put a squad together. And I'd say there's 2 actual zone teams trying to go that may go as 2 different teams. Like there's a lot of individual players that want to go, but I know Jason's talked to me. Both Jasons have talked to me. And then a bunch of other people from my local site have been asking about like, do you know who's going? I want to go,
It's kind of the same conversation you were having with, I think it was Popeyes from New Zealand.
Yep.
When you and Holmes talked to him, where we're kind of in that level of, do we want to do more localized teams that can kind of practice together and stuff like that? Or do we want to take a bigger picture look at it and try to conglomerate into one team if we can? And I think some of that is just who ends up being able to go, who doesn't. But there's a healthy amount of people that I've talked to that are interested one way or another. From there, I'm always talking to people from Baltimore, people from Philly. Who knows if Legends comes out of the woodworks, it would be great to have them back. I didn't even know about the Armageddon team. That would be fantastic.
And the Armageddon team didn't realize, because as you know, Armageddon's a big thing even over in the UK, and there's a lot of players that travel to the US, and they were talking about taking some of the UK guys, and I said, just understand that if you go, you wouldn't be representing the USA. It would be like a conglomerate team from, I don't know how that works. I think each country has like first choice before they're allowed to go. If I remember correctly, I have to go back to the World's chat, but I just wanted them to be aware of that. And then just, they had no idea. And I was like, yeah, I mean, like, so I want to share all that information with the Armageddon community too about Worlds next year, because there was definitely some interest there from them as well.
Well, I mean, I'm not sure what the rules are, but you might be able to get extra players along because you got your US teams already filling up spots, but there's going to any opportunity to get another country involved. The World's Council will be all over that. Yeah. So, it might be that there's some US players representing the UK potentially.
Yep.
Oh, that's really cool. And how are you guys going to go around your selections of teams or approving teams? Is that something that you will look after as the council member, Luke, or is that something you guys will just collectively, as the leadership in the country, kind of figure out?
I would say,
what's your plan there?
I would say
I don't think we've thought about that because we would be very lucky to hit that number.
Yeah, I don't think that it'll be an issue for the U.S.
It's who can afford to go, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think we'll run into any.
What is it? 4 teams that you can have?
I would say 3 is. I think it was 3 last I checked.
Yeah.
And then you could have conglomerate.
I think it's the. Yeah. What is it? I think it's 3 teams per country that went to the last Worlds, and it goes through all the selections, and then it can fill in the rest with international or national teams from countries that have already filled. I want to say is how it is.
And I think there will be plenty of room because from my discussions with other people, a lot of people say that plane ticket's really expensive. So like we're happy to like make sure that no matter what, we get a team to go, even if it's not necessarily like the roster we want. We're still gonna like the players that want to go will find a way to go, you know.
Yeah. Oh, that's really good, and really good to share with the community too, because I think everybody's kind of like, it's a bit hard when there's not a huge amount of communication that goes across the countries from players, because players don't know each other. So the players are like waiting to see who's committing. So it's important we share this message about who's keen, because that'll get the Aussies keen, essentially. So, and the Europeans, most importantly, because they got the furthest to come. So we really hope we get some of the top European teams and players over. Yes. Okay, gentlemen. Well, we're coming to the completion of the session today. Any final words you guys would like to share about Nats next year? What you've got coming up, or anything before we finish?
I don't think I got much else really. I think we've pretty much covered everything for nationals. I mean, I guess for what it's worth, we are going to test having a dedicated coordinator for the event. So typically our coordinator's always been somebody who's playing the tournament, right? And it's always kind of been like this kind of weird gray area where the person running the event is also playing. So sometimes things go slowly, tread off schedule or whatever. So we have somebody that we're going to try to coordinate pre-nats. And, it's like a test run, see how it goes. Because we've never had somebody who just, like, we lack, I said, like we mentioned before, we lack volunteers. We lack, like dedicated refs, things like that. We have volunteers for things, and in most cases, they're players, right? So having a dedicated coordinator will be very interesting, and we're excited to see how pre-nats goes with that. And if it goes well, then odds are they will also be coordinating nationals as well. So we're excited to see how that plays out. And
you've got this person picked out already?
Yeah, we do. So we're actually going to have a meeting on Tuesday and go over kind of the schedule and some of the tidbits about what we're looking for.
They helped out at Battle for the Fort too, and they did a good job. So
yeah, I agree. Yeah. So we're excited to see how it plays out. I'm hoping everything is just nothing but flying colors from there. So if we could have somebody I really think it would help out a lot.
Also, their line of work is event organizers, so it will help a lot to have that as their line of work.
It tracks.
Yeah, totally.
I didn't even know this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, hats off to the 3 of you guys. It's just super impressive what you guys are up to, and how committed you are to getting the US scene back on its feet. And it's like just so rewarding to see the results really starting to already happen. So best of luck for the year ahead, guys. Any way we can help, as you know, we're here for you. We'll tune in again. No doubt we'll tune in again on this podcast before pre-nats, perhaps.
Thanks, guys.
Sounds great.
Yeah, appreciate it.
See you next time.